The majority of Americans do not want this divisiveness. They don't want a threat of violence. We are okay to disagree with each other, but that's where it ends. We go to vote. Who wins, wins. Oh, even more so. I just keep wondering the gift that the Trump campaign keeps giving us. I don't think they realize, I don't think they really are in touch with where the majority of Americans are at. And we move on with our lives. The fact that the way that what you just played here, I hadn't heard Trump utter those words. I'd heard somebody say that he said.
Donald Trump has had many public meltdowns over the years. But what happened after Michael Moore went live on national TV with explosive claims from Trump's past? That wasn't just another headline, it was a detonation, the kind that shakes the walls of Mar-a-Lago and sets off a social media frenzy. It began like any other night, another talk show, another celebrity guest. But when Moore sat down, the tension was already thick. He didn't waste time with jokes, he didn't pull punches. Within seconds, he was bringing up names, dates, and details that Trump had fought to bury for decades. The cameras rolled, the audience held its breath, and Trump's team scrambled. Moore started by recounting Trump's early business failures, not the ones everyone already knew about, like the casinos or the airline, but the ones buried under shell companies and legal threats. He claimed Trump's original funding wasn't as clean as it looked. That family connections weren't just helpful, but essential, and not always legal. There were murmurs about offshore accounts, about silent partners with shady reputations, and about lawsuits that mysteriously vanished right before trial. Then Moore dropped the name of someone Trump hadn't heard in years, a former associate turned whistleblower.
To hear that. They actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here. They can shoot through the media, the assassins. Go ahead and fire. And all those other things you just played. It's like they really believe that the average normal American wants. We are all the product of immigrants, and we love our grandparents and our great-grandparents and the people that got us here to this great country. And to talk about immigrants in this vicious, vile way.
According to Moore, this person had written a letter Moore claimed to have read personally, describing backroom deals, coercion, and hush money. Deals made in the 80s that Trump thought were long forgotten. The studio audience gasped. Twitter exploded. And at Mar-a-Lago, Trump reportedly went ballistic. Within minutes of the broadcast, Trump's Truth Social account lit up like a wildfire. He called Moore a washed-up nobody, a failed filmmaker, and an enemy of the American people. He ranted about fake news, deep state operatives, and Hollywood's war on his legacy. But the anger wasn't just online. According to insiders, Trump began making calls immediately, trying to stop the segment from being replayed, pressuring executives, threatening lawsuits. One staffer allegedly said it was the most unhinged they'd seen him since the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. But what exactly did Moore reveal that made Trump so furious? It wasn't just business. Moore had pivoted to Trump's personal life. He spoke about Trump's early years in Manhattan, painting a picture of a man obsessed with image, desperate for validation, and willing to step on anyone to rise. He brought up former girlfriends, hush agreements, and stories from the modeling world that never made it to court, but circulated in whispers for decades. He didn't make wild accusations. He read from public records. Moore had receipts. And the show's producers knew exactly what they were doing. They cut to dramatic close-ups, timed the music, and let Moore hang in the silence between sentences. But perhaps the biggest bombshell came when Moore said he had been approached by a documentary source claiming to have video footage from the late 90s, footage that allegedly showed Trump at an elite private party with several other high-profile businessmen and entertainers. The nature of the footage was not made clear, but Moore hinted it involved conduct that would destroy careers instantly. He didn't say he would release it. He just said he knew it existed and that someone had offered to give it to him. That one sentence was enough to send Trump into a tailspin. His legal team immediately issued statements demanding retractions. But Moore, as always, seemed to thrive under pressure. The next morning, he went on another show. And instead of walking anything back, he doubled down. "If Trump wants to sue me," he said, "he better be ready for discovery. I've got more than he thinks." Suddenly, it wasn't just about one night on TV. It was about what Moore had in his possession and what he was willing to reveal next. Right-wing media scrambled to discredit Moore. They played old clips, called him a propagandist, and dug into his finances. But the damage was done. News outlets across the country picked up the story. Cable news ran split screens, Trump fuming on one side, Moore smirking on the other. The White House, even though Trump wasn't in office, was reportedly contacted by multiple outlets for comment, just to gauge how deep the panic ran. And it did run deep. In private, Trump's inner circle was in full damage control. Old friends were contacted, former staffers were warned, publicists were working overtime scrubbing connections, cleaning up articles, and issuing quiet threats to reporters who got too close. The Republican National Committee was said to be monitoring the situation closely as Trump's potential return to the political stage in 2028 began to look more uncertain. Moore, meanwhile, teased that he was working on a new project, one that would make Fahrenheit 9/11 look like a warm-up. Speculation grew rapidly. Was Moore preparing a tell-all film? Did he have access to Epstein-related documents that named Trump? Was he in contact with other insiders who had once stayed silent but were now willing to talk? One moment that particularly rattled the Trump camp came during Moore's second appearance. He pulled out a black folder, thick, worn, labeled only with a date. "This," Moore said, "isn't just about Trump. This is about a system that's protected people like him for decades, and I'm done letting it slide." He didn't open it, he didn't show it, but the mere presence of the folder made headlines. Analysts compared it to the infamous Comey memos or the Watergate tapes. Whatever was inside, it was enough to make Trump rage behind closed doors. Former allies began to distance themselves. One Republican senator who once defended Trump called Moore's claims serious and worth investigating. A former Trump campaign official went on background to confirm that some of the stories Moore mentioned were real concerns during 2016, but got buried. And yet, Trump didn't slow down. If anything, he became more aggressive, more interviews, more rants, more lawsuits. But it wasn't working. Polling showed a sharp drop in support among moderate conservatives. Some independents who had once tolerated Trump's behavior began to question how much they hadn't been told. And the media had a field day. Saturday Night Live mocked the meltdown. Late-night hosts roasted Trump with glee. Jimmy Kimmel said, "Trump's past is like a horror movie sequel. Just when you think you've seen it all, another creepy surprise jumps out." Trump, ever unable to ignore a feud, continued to fan the flames. He even recorded a late-night video from Mar-a-Lago addressing Moore directly. "You're a fraud, a loser. No one watches your movies anymore. You're lying to stay relevant, but you'll be hearing from my lawyers." Moore replied within the hour, "See you in court, Don." Behind the scenes, a more sinister game may have been unfolding. Some sources speculated that Moore had security increased at his home. Others whispered that former Trump associates had been instructed to send messages. Whether those messages were legal threats or something darker, no one would say. But Moore, for his part, stayed cool. "I've dealt with people like Trump my entire career," he said. "Bullies with money don't scare me." And so the showdown continues. Moore hasn't released the footage. Not yet. But the promise is there. A slow, deliberate threat that Trump can't ignore. Every day, another layer peels back. Another source goes public. Another document leaks. What began as a single TV appearance has grown into a national story, the kind that casts shadows over everything Trump touches. His rallies grow angrier, his speeches more frantic. He claims it's all lies, but the cracks are showing. Whether Moore will drop the next bombshell or wait for the perfect moment remains to be seen. But one thing's clear, Trump's past isn't just catching up with him, it's being dragged, kicking and screaming into the light. And for a man who built his empire on image, there may be no greater threat than the truth finally catching fire. Like the video and subscribe, because this isn't over, and the next leak might just change everything.